I spent 2 years planning and funding a Europe trip for my parents, only for them to take my unemployed sister instead. Mom grinned. We chose to take your sister because she needed some rest. I remained silent. When they arrived in Europe, they were taken by surprise, as she went out onto the porch and pulled her luggage behind her. My mother exclaimed, "You're late." I looked at my dashboard's clock. The time was 6:02 a.m. I forced a smile and added, "Mom, you're 2 minutes late." My sister, Kayla, was coming out of the house with her own suitcase in tow. As I stepped out of the van to assist with the luggage, my grin went cold. "What's happening?" I asked, attempting to speak steadily. My mother turned to face me, her face too happy for the occasion. "Oh, Sarah, we agreed that Kayla should attend in your place. She truly needs this trip because she has been under a lot of stress lately." My chest constricted. "Instead of me? I've been preparing this for years, Mom. Everything was paid for by me." She dismissively waved a hand, as though I had just brought up a pointless detail. "And we appreciate that, darling, but you put in a lot of effort every day. Later, you can go somewhere else. Kayla urgently needs this." Kayla lacked even the grace to appear guilty. She simply shifted her weight onto one hip and grinned. With a tone full of phony appreciation, she responded, "Thanks for understanding, sis." My heart was racing as I gazed at the two of them. After a time, my dad handed me his suitcase and shuffled out, avoiding eye contact. I trembled as I said, "This is unbelievable. I have something to share with you. This was supposed to be our trip." My mother smiled and remarked, "Well, it still is, instead just with Kayla. Sarah, don't worry about it. Your sister is in dire need of a vacation. I'm Sarah, and I've been working extra hours and saving every cent for a trip my parents will never forget for the past 2 years. I organized every aspect, including the final dinner reservation, flights, upscale lodging, and guided tours. But as I saw my sister climb into the back seat of my car in my parents' driveway, I came to the realization that no matter how hard I tried, it didn't matter. This was something I had been dreading for years. Kayla would always come first in their eyes. Biting back the scathing remark that was on the tip of my tongue, I tightened my jaw. I opened the trunk instead, forcing a strange smile. "Then let's get started," I remarked in a bland voice. Okay, if they decided to put her before me, they could accompany her. I wasn't going to let them have fun, though. With the exception of Kayla's constant conversation, the journey to the airport was oppressively quiet. "Oh my God, Mom. Did you see the Paris-related TikTok? The prospect of shopping there excites me. Will the excursions take up the entire day, or do you believe we'll have time for that?" I forced myself not to speak as I glanced straight ahead, my hands tightening their grasp on the driving wheel. My mother laughed quietly. "We will have time, of course. When we arrive, we'll work it out." I took a bite out of my cheek. Once we arrived, they didn't even appear to realize that I was no longer a member of that we. My father cleared his throat once. "We appreciate you taking us, Sarah. I am aware that this feels strange." I looked in the rearview mirror at him. "Unusual? That's a clever way to phrase it, Dad." He didn't answer. He only shuffled uneasily in his chair, perhaps wishing he had said nothing at all. Kayla's voice was annoying as she leaned forward from the back seat. "You're not angry, are you? I mean, letting go is incredibly big of you. On my own, I could never have afforded this." I made a tight smile and tightened my jaw. "Kayla, of course, have fun on the journey." My patience was ebbing by the time we arrived at the airport drop-off area. My mother hugged me while I assisted them in unloading their bags. "I appreciate your understanding, my love. This is really important to Kayla and to us." I gave a rigid nod. "Yes, Mom." Wheeling her bag toward the door, Kayla smiled. "Thank you, Sarah. You are the greatest." My chest was constricted with hurt and rage as I watched them vanish inside the terminal. It was a blur on the way home. I repeatedly reenacted the exchange in my mind, with each statement having a deeper meaning than the one before. "Kayla is really touched by this. You're not angry, are you? You work so hard all the time." After parking in my driveway, I spent a few minutes sitting in the car and holding onto the steering wheel until my knuckles became white. Then, without hesitation, I strode inside, took out my laptop, and signed into all of the travel accounts I had used to make the reservations for a hotel canceled, tours reimbursed, upgrades on airlines lost. The constriction in my chest began to loosen as I gazed at the confirmation emails that were accumulating in my inbox. They wouldn't be staying in five-star hotels or doing private tours on my pay if they wanted to take Kayla instead of me. I felt a wave of satisfaction wash over me as I shut down my laptop. In Paris, they could explain themselves to the receptionists. I had had enough of being a doormat. When their plane touched down, the calls began. As I unpacked my suitcase, the one I had meticulously prepared for a trip that was no longer mine, my phone began to vibrate constantly. As I put my shoes back on the rack and hung up my clothes, I couldn't help but notice the irony. The incessant vibration of the humming permeated the entire area. I picked up the phone, looked at the screen, and sighed. It displayed my mother's name, along with a number of missed calls and texts. I went through the messages after unlocking the phone. "What's going on, Sarah? We are unable to check in at the hotel. There is no reservation. Give me a call now. This isn't humorous, Sarah. Take care of this right away." Before I could stop myself, I let out a laugh. Make this right? After what they had done, did they really think I would step in and save the day? Kayla was calling when the phone buzzed once again. She left me a voicemail after I let it ring. With a tone full of entitlement, she yelled, "Sarah, this is so petty. You're the reason we're stuck here. Now is the time to call the hotel and have things fixed." Without hearing the remainder, I rolled my eyes and erased the voicemail. I had been their fixer for years, picking up all the slack and smoothing over all the mistakes. No more. I finally made the decision to respond, if only to put an end to the flurry of calls. As soon as I picked it up, my mother's voice hit me like a tidal wave of rage. "What did you do, Sarah? All of the tours are currently scheduled, and the hotel claims that the reservation was canceled." After listening to her tirade for a while, I simply responded, "I canceled them." After a lengthy moment of astonished silence, she growled, "Why would you do that?" I answered in a sarcastic tone, "Oh, I don't know. Perhaps because you chose to accompany Kayla on my journey? I even drove you to the airport, so you're lucky." "We assumed you would comprehend," she yelled. "Understand," I said, raising my voice. "Those years of saving and planning didn't matter because Kayla needed a break? That my hard work meant nothing to you? Guess what, Mom? I don't understand, and I don't care to." Before she could answer, I hung up and threw my phone on the couch, turning it off. The ensuing quiet was lovely, and I felt as though I could breathe again for the first time in a long time. They could manage the rest of the journey without me. But it's okay if they decided to put Kayla first. There was only a day of silence. My phone was ringing with calls and messages once more by the next morning. I ignored them at first. I caught up on work and cleaned the house during the day, but by nightfall, my curiosity overcame me. I grabbed my phone and readied myself for the barrage of texts that would come in. From my mother, "You've gone too far, Sarah. Your father is angry, and your sister is crying. None of the hotels you reserved are accessible to us." From Kayla, "You're behaving like a kid. Why you're making such a huge deal out of this is beyond me. Just get things fixed already." And lastly, from my father, "We must speak. This is incorrect." I shook my head and put the phone down. I had been the one making repairs and ensuring everyone was content for years. They were unsure of how to respond now that I had retreated. I sat at the kitchen table, letting my rage boil, and made myself a cup of tea. They have no right to expect me to tidy up their mess. How could they pretend that I was at fault? Minutes later, I took the next call and answered it. "Sarah," before I could speak, my mother yelled, "This is no longer amusing. We're stuck. How embarrassing is this, do you know?" I sipped my tea slowly. "Shameful? Do you find this embarrassing? Imagine saving for years and organizing every aspect of the vacation, only to be informed that you won't even be going. Quit being so dramatic," she yelled. "Kayla was more in need of this than you were," I firmly stated. "And now she can figure it out, Mom. You made your choice, okay? So you wanted to take Kayla rather than me. However, don't count on me to pay for her trip. We're related," she growled. "We don't treat one another like this." I laughed resentfully. It's funny, I had the exact same thought. Kayla's whimpering voice could be heard in the background. "Simply hang up on her, Mom. She is acting in an unthinkable manner." That was the last straw. With a cold tone, I said, "Enjoy your trip." "You can't," I said, "since it's not your journey. I owned it, and now it belongs to no one. Farewell." Before she could answer, I hung up and shut off my phone once more. For the remainder of the evening, I experienced a strange mixture of relief and rage. Relief that I had finally defended myself and fury that they had placed me in this predicament. All they wanted to do was label me dramatic. I wasn't allowing people to take advantage of me for the first time in my life. The days that followed were gloriously peaceful. I was finally able to concentrate straight without being distracted by guilt trips and accusations. When I turned off my phone, I sipped coffee on my back porch in the mornings and relished the peace I had long sought. My afternoons were spent working and finishing small tasks that I had been putting off, which served as a reminder of my abilities when I wasn't constrained by their never-ending demands. My curiosity overcame me by the third day. There were more than a dozen voicemails waiting for me when I turned my phone back on. My mother sent the first several messages, becoming more and more frantic with each one. "You must give me a call back immediately, Sarah. This has gotten out of hand. It's unbelievable that you're doing this. We are humiliated by you. How could you treat us like this when we are your parents?" Kayla's communications then arrived, replete with the arrogant tone she had usually employed. "This is quite trivial, even for you. Everything is being ruined by you, Sarah. Just repair it." My dad's voice finally emerged, a little softer but no less sharp. "I don't know what happened to you, Sarah. Give us a call back so we can resolve this." After a moment of hesitation, I listened to my mother's lengthy final message. This time, she spoke more quietly and with a hint of annoyance and weariness. "We're back at the airport now, Sarah," she said. "I hope you are pleased with yourself, but the trip is spoiled. Your father and I are, well, disappointed doesn't even come close to describing how upset your sister is. When you're ready to speak, give us a call." Without responding, I erased the voicemails. To be honest, I wasn't prepared to speak and wasn't sure if I ever would be. This was the result of years of them prioritizing Kayla and expecting me to smile in acceptance. It wasn't a one-time error. As the hours went by, I couldn't help but think back on all the occasions I'd been ignored or disregarded. Every family get-together where Kayla's whims controlled the schedule. Every holiday when my achievements were viewed as an afterthought. Although the Fishers had been developing for years, this trip had been the tipping point. Jenna dropped by unexpectedly that night with 2 cups of coffee and a curious expression on her face. She placed the coffee on the table and remarked, "I heard about what happened. Your mother gave me a call yesterday." She had, of course, when my mother attempted to coerce me into complying. She had always been skilled at finding allies, and I took a sip and inquired. A wicked smile crept onto Jenna's face as she shrugged. "I informed her that you were most likely busy and would contact her again when you had time." I shook my head and laughed. "You are the greatest." "No, because you finally stood up for yourself. You're the best," she remarked in a suddenly serious tone. "Sarah, I understand how difficult that is. Don't allow them to get you down again." Long after she was gone, her words remained with me. Jenna was correct. I had put in too much effort to please individuals who never seemed to appreciate what I had done. It was time to permanently end that cycle. I experienced an odd feeling of clarity by the time the weekend arrived. Freedom, which I hadn't experienced in years, joined the rage that was still bubbling beneath the surface. Freedom from their never-ending demands. Freedom from fixing things for the family. Freedom to live my life as I see fit. However, the silence was short-lived, as anticipated. When I eventually received a call on a Sunday afternoon, I chose to answer it. My dad did it this time. With a tired tone, he said, "Sarah, your mom wanted me to call. She believes you will pay attention to me." I said, reclining in my chair. "Go on." He sighed. "Look, everything has gotten out of control. Kayla is angry. Your mom is outraged. And, well, it's a complete disaster. However, you are superior to this." I tensed up as his comments sparked a new round of rage. "Dad, better than what? Defending myself? Refusing to let you trample me once more?" "I didn't mean that," he added hastily. "You've always been the sensible one, that's all. The one who maintains order. This isn't like you," I said, making a brief, sour laugh. "You're right. It's not like me because I'm not bending over backward to clean up your mess." When he hesitated, I briefly believed he would finally understand my point of view. However, he subsequently stated, "You're punishing the whole family over one decision. Is that really fair?" "Fair?" I asked again, raising my voice. "You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you and Mom decided I wasn't important enough to be part of the trip I planned? Was it fair when you replaced me with Kayla like I didn't matter?" He said, "That's not what we were trying to do." In a defensive tone, "We just thought Kayla needed it more." "More?" I yelled. "Of course you did. You always think she needs more. More attention, more support, more of everything. and I'm always the one expected to sacrifice for her. Not anymore. It was so quiet on the other end of the line. At last, he stated, "I don't know what you want me to say." "I don't need you to say anything," I said in a steady voice. "I just need you to understand that I'm done being the afterthought. From now on, I come first. Goodbye, Dad." With shaking hands, I hung up and put the phone down. I allowed myself to feel everything for the remainder of the day, including relief, grief, and rage. Although it wasn't simple, it felt like a fresh beginning. I was no longer, and never would be, the family's fixer. They were capable of resolving their own mess. I was waiting for my parents and Kayla at their place when they eventually came back. I'd parked in their driveway, sipping coffee and feeling surprisingly calm as I watched their taxi pull up. As they stepped out, dragging their suitcases behind them, their faces were a mix of exhaustion and irritation. Kayla was the first to speak. "Well, I hope you're happy, Sarah." I raised an eyebrow, staying seated on the porch swing. "Happy about what?" "Our trip was a disaster," my mom snapped, waving her hand as if to brush the whole thing away. "We spent the entire week staying in dingy hotels and eating terrible food because we couldn't afford anything decent. And don't get me started on the tours," Kayla chimed in, crossing her arms. "Oh wait, there weren't any. Do you know how embarrassing it was to show up and be told there was no reservation?" I took another sip of coffee, letting their frustrations wash over me. "Sounds rough," I answered finally, my voice cool. "But you wanted to take Kayla, remember? I'm sure you all had some great bonding time." "That's not the point," my mom shot out, her voice rising. "You knew we couldn't afford all the things you'd planned. You set us up to fail." I stood up, setting my drink down on the tiny table next to me. "No, Mom, I didn't set you up for anything. I planned a trip for the three of us, something special I'd been saving for years. You're the ones who decided to cut me out at the last second." When my father did speak, it was in a lower but no less accusing tone. "You didn't have to cancel everything, Sarah." That was extreme. With my arms folded, I questioned, was it? Why should I have paid for a trip I wasn't even invited to? If Kayla needed it so badly, you should have planned it yourselves. "You're lucky I didn't cancel the return flight." Kayla rolled her eyes. "You're so dramatic. It's just money, Sarah. And you're so entitled," I retorted at last, losing patience. "Or do you just think that because someone else handles it, things automatically happen for you? Do you have any idea how much work and sacrifice went into planning that trip?" For a time, they stood stunned into silence. With a steady yet forceful voice, I went on, "I've spent years being the responsible one, the one who fixes things, plans things, and makes sure everything runs smoothly. In addition, you've taken everything for granted for an equal amount of time." My mother began to say, "That's not fair," but I interrupted her by raising a hand. "No, Mother, the way you treated me is unfair. I decided to stop being your doormat because, as usual, you picked Kayla over me. Did you not want me to go? All right. However, without me, you are unable to reap the rewards of my labors." I turned to go after grabbing my luggage from the porch swing. "I'm happy you made it back safely, but don't count on things to return to normal. I'm finished." They called after me as I was making my way to my car, their words a mixture of shame and rage, but I didn't turn around. Every visit from my parents' place had left me emotionally spent for years, but this time, I felt lighter after saying all I'd been holding in and, for once, not worrying about their reaction. The trip home was oddly serene. I prepared a cup of tea when I came home and sat on the couch, mentally reliving the encounter. They had been so confident that I would give in, as I always do, but seeing their shocked expressions as I left served as a reminder of how much I had changed. I was done spending my life to satisfy their expectations. Therefore, it didn't matter if they were upset, offended, or ashamed. Jenna called me the following day. "How did it go?" Without making an effort to be polite, she inquired. I leaned back against the kitchen counter and chuckled. "Just as you would expect. Kayla is sulking, they are enraged, and Mom is presumably attempting to find a way to guilt me back into compliance." Jenna gave a little nod. "Give her a chance. Now that you have a backbone, I'm here to make sure it remains in place." I smiled, appreciating her steadfast assistance. "Jenna, thank you. I mean it. Throughout everything, you have been my pillar of support. Anytime," she continued, her tone softening. "So, now that you're not playing family fixer anymore, what's next for you?" Since the encounter, I had been wondering what would happen next. I had spent years trying to win my family's approval and pleasing them. So now that I was free of that weight, the options felt limitless and a bit scary. I said, I don't know yet, but I feel like I have the final say. No one else, not even them, only me. I heard Jenna say, sounds like the start of something amazing, and her smile was audible. Over the course of the following few weeks, I began making little adjustments that felt significant in their own right. I redecorated my living room, replacing my parents' hand-me-down furniture with pieces that felt particularly mine, and I spent weekends visiting nearby parks and cafes, things I had always wanted to do but had never had time for. I began journaling, putting down my ideas and dreams without considering what other people would think of them. Every little step felt like regaining a piece of myself that I had been unaware I had lost. As the canceled reservations looked back at me one evening when I sat down with my laptop and opened the spreadsheet I had used to organize the trip, I felt a wave of resolve rather than regret. I wasn't going to waste that money, which had been intended for a once-in-a-lifetime event. So I closed the spreadsheet, opened a new tab in my browser, and searched solo travel ideas. It wasn't the same itinerary I'd planned for them, and it wasn't about making a statement anymore. Instead, it was for me, a chance to celebrate my independence and finally put myself first. When I scheduled a solo trip to Italy a few weeks following my parents' return, I had never traveled alone before, so I was both excited and anxious when I landed in Rome. However, as soon as I left the airport and entered the busy city, I knew I had made the right choice. There was no schedule, no one else to think about, just me and the freedom to do exactly what I wanted. I spent my days exploring cobblestone alleyways, marveling at ancient ruins, and enjoying meals at quaint, tiny cafes. I took out my journal, which I had carried with me, one afternoon while enjoying a gelato. I had been writing about my goals for years, but they were usually entwined with making other people happy. As I was writing, the emphasis changed: acquire a new language, launch a modest company, visit a minimum of 5 other nations. As the list expanded, each objective reflected the life I wished to lead rather than the one that had been expected of me. As I ate supper at a small, family-run restaurant with a view of the Arno River on my last night in Florence, I was struck with a profound sense of tranquility. As I watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and orange, I'd spent so much of my life trying to get my family's favor, but here, thousands of miles away, I realized something crucial. I didn't need it. I was enough just the way I was. This trip had been more than just a vacation. It was a turning point. My parents made another attempt to contact me after I got home, using more tactful language and well-crafted texts. One of my mom's texts said, "I hope you had a good trip. Perhaps we can all talk soon." I put down my phone after staring at the message for a while, deciding that this time it would be on my terms and that I wasn't ready to respond. I felt proud as I put trinkets on my shelf and unloaded my suitcase. My mom called me a week after I got back from my vacation, and I picked it up this time. "Hello, Sarah," she said in a tone that was surprisingly gentle. "How was your journey?" "It was amazing," I answered in a bland tone. "That's excellent to hear," she continued, hesitating as though she was trying to find the proper words. "And we have been reflecting on what happened a lot. Perhaps we did not handle things well." Although I was taken aback by the admission, I wasn't yet prepared to forgive her. "Wrongly, without even asking, you took my spot on a trip that I organized and paid for." "That's an understatement," she whispered. "I know. Your dad and we were unaware of how deeply it would harm you." "What about Kayla? Is she still blaming me for spoiling her vacation? Or does she feel bad too?" I inquired. "She's upset," she said, "but I think she knows now she could have handled things better." I leaned on the counter inside. This was more than just the vacation, Mom. It has to do with years of prioritizing her and expecting me to make up the difference. "I've stopped doing it." She paused before responding. "I get that. We will make an effort to perform better. We'd rather not lose you." I had learned enough to not let guilt control my decisions, even if her remark struck a deep chord with me. I answered, "I'm happy to hear that, but fixing this will require more than just words. Real effort, not just excuses, is what I need to see." "You will," she stated. "We'll give you the space you need, but I hope you'll let us back in someday." As I sat down with my journal that evening, I recognized something crucial. Whether or not they changed was not my duty. After the call, I felt a range of feelings, including satisfaction that they were finally admitting their behavior and skepticism about whether they would truly change. I maintained my boundaries throughout the next few months, answering their calls and texts when I felt like it. But I didn't make an effort to make amends or diffuse arguments. Instead, I concentrated on creating the life I desired. Every step I took felt like regaining another aspect of myself. So I joined a local hiking group, took a photography class, something I'd always wanted to do but never had the time or energy for, and even began organizing my next solo trip. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.